Okay, so this is your tool setup that you will need to do a brake job on a Ford Ranger for the front brakes. Now, you're gonna need at least a set of tools. Preferably, you would want a 1/4 inch one or 3/8. As you can see, I've already broken these nuts loose using a breaker bar. You're also gonna want one of these. Impacts also work if you have one of those. For the size of the lug nuts, my lug nuts are 20 millimeters, so I have a 20 millimeter impact socket. And you're gonna need lubricants. These are for the slide pins. I'll demonstrate how to use those later in the video. This anti-seize grease lubricant will be used on the brake pads and brake clips. This is brake clean. You're also gonna need some of this to clean off all of your parts before you install them. Okay, so obviously, before you change your brakes, you want to take your wheel off. Now, to do a full complete brake job, we're obviously going to be changing brake rotors and brake pads. So when locating the bolts on a brake job for a Ford Ranger, you're going to notice 2 bolts. You're going to notice one on the top and one on the bottom. And these bolts should be a 13 millimeter, which, as you can see, the 13 fits perfectly. And the bolts on the back holding the caliper in place on the wheel hub, which should be these right here. These should be a 19 millimeter, which, as you can see, if I grab one, it will fit on there, snug and perfectly. Even on the top one. Top one is in a really hard to reach spot, as you can see. Okay, so first thing you want to do before actually removing your caliper is breaking these 2 bolts, which it's kind of hard to see the one on the top, but you want to break those 2 bolts loose first. You don't want to take them off completely, but like that, they should be loose enough to where you can hand loosen them, because then you should have no problem taking them off later. Okay, so now once you have both of these bolts broken loose, you want to take your 19 millimeter and you want to loosen the 2 bolts holding the caliper in place. The one at the top's in a little bit of a harder spot to get to, but you should have it loose enough to where you can hand loosen them. It's a lot easier to get them out once you get them to the point where you can hand loosen them like so.
Right, run and practice it.
I'm already recording.
Oh, you got to film it there. Look at you.
Okay, so once you get both of your caliper bolts off, the whole caliper should just slide off like that. Once it does, you want to take your S-hook and hook it through the caliper at preferably in one of these spots right here. You just want to take it and just hook it through. So now once you get your brake caliper hung up, I have mine hung up through there and hanging on the upper control arm. You want to move on to getting your brake rotor off, which most cars would have a little screw or something, a setting screw, holding it in place. With Ford Rangers, that's not the case. Right here in the center, you're going to find this little cap. You want to use a pair of pliers, just like these, to just wiggle it until the cap comes off. And once you do get the cap off, you want to take the same pair of pliers and you want to size it down a little bit. You want to just grip this center bolt and you should be able to just turn it till it comes off. It shouldn't be that tight. Once you break it loose, you should be able to hand loosen it, like so. And this is your wheel hub, so yes, everything in here will be covered with grease. Which, if you are replacing the rotor, you would want to obviously clean and re-grease all of this. And obviously, once you get that center bolt right here off, you just want to pull it and the entire assembly should come off. Right here in the center is where you're going to find your wheel bearing. And obviously, if you are replacing the rotor, you're going to want to re-grease all of this because that attaches to the drive axle, and everything in here is just covered with grease. Because on Ford Rangers, your brake rotor is also your wheel hub assembly. So it should come just like this, all in one. So now, obviously, once you get your brake rotor off, you're just going to want to take a little bit of brake clean and just clean the whole thing off. You're going to want to do that to the front and the back side of the rotor. Okay, so after you get your brake rotor off and cleaned off, you want to take your caliper off of your S-hook, and the two bolts that you should have broken loose earlier should be able to hand loosen. These are your slide pins. Should just come out just like that. And once you have those two bolts out, the caliper bracket should disconnect from the physical caliper, and the physical caliper with the brake line connected, you just want to take and rehang onto your S-hook. And obviously, once you have your caliper bracket off, you want to pop your old brake pads out. And your clips for your brake pads should come out with those.
Why does the suspension not rise?
And once you have everything off of the bracket, you want to take these out right here. These should be your slide pins. These you will want to clean off and re-grease. You want to do both of them. Make sure you remember which one goes into where. This one obviously goes right here at the top, and this one right here goes in the bottom. So now, once you have your slide pins off, you just want to take a little bit of brake clean to get all the old lubricant off. And you obviously want to take a paper towel or a pig mat like I'm using and just wipe them off, just to get all the old grease and gunk off of them. Make sure that they are clean. Okay, so once you get your slide pins cleaned off, you want to take some ceramic brake parts lubricant. It should be a purple color, like this. Now you just want to take your slide pins and lubricate them up with So now once you get your slide pins back into place, you're gonna wanna take some brake clean and we're gonna re-grease these spots right here. So you just wanna take some brake clean and spray all of the old grease off of those spots. And once you have a good majority of the old grease off, you would want to get a paper towel or a pig mat and just wipe the spot off, dry it off, and get as much of the old lubricant off as you can. And it should be cleaned off like that afterwards. And obviously once you get that cleaned off, you want to take some anti-seize lubricant. It should be a gray silver color like that, and you just want to reapply it to the spots that you just cleaned off. What this does is it'll stop your brake pads from seizing up every time you brake, and every time you do change your brake pads or brake rotors or just do any form of a brake job, you always want to redo the grease and lubricant on a good majority of these parts. So after, it should look like that. Okay, so now once you get everything re-greased and put back together, you just want to take your brake rotor and slide it back onto your drive axle. You want to take your wheel bearing and you want to first slide the wheel bearing in. Should be able to be pushed all the way down like that. This piece you're going to want to align. You're going to notice it has these little cutouts in it. You're going to want to align that with the threads of your drive axle. Once you get that back on, you want to take your center nut and hand thread that back on. And once you get that hand threaded back on, you just want to take your pliers and turn it a little bit. You don't want to tighten it a lot because you don't want to end up stripping the threads on this. But once you do get that back on, you just want to take your center cap and it should just push back into place like that. And now your rotor should be on. It shouldn't move or wiggle at all. It should be flush on there and still be able to spin. As you can see, mine still spins and it does not wiggle or move at all. So how I like going about putting the brake caliper back on is just taking the caliper bracket itself and tightening these two bolts right here and up here. Tightening those two bolts that hold the bracket in place down first, because when you just put the bracket on, it's a lot easier to put the whole caliper itself back together. By taking your clips, they should just pop back on like that. Ones on the bottom should pop in, and then your ones on the top should also pop back in. Now once you have your clips pop back in, you want to take your brake pads and they should just slide into the clips at the top and at the bottom. Now for the rear ones, it's just the same thing. They should pop back in like that. And once you feel that they are on there all the way and that they're not gonna fall or slip out, you want to take your caliper. You want to make sure that your line is straight, not crooked or twisted or bent in any way. And you want to slide it back on and into place. If you have to, which you probably will, you have to push your slide pins in for the caliper to slip on all the way. Okay, now once you get your caliper back into place, you want to take the 13mm bolts that go up here and down here and that connect into your slide pins. You just want to tighten those down.
Hey, Scott. Scott,
Hold on.
you wanna know the good news about us not dressing? You don't have to get undressed. You can just go straight and grab our bags.
After getting the bottom one tightened in all the way, you want to tighten the top one until it is flush, as you can see, and the slide pin is completely pressed against the caliper, which, as you can see, it is on the bottom too. And after you get everything put back together the way it should be, you just want to take some brake clean and obviously get as much nasty, like leftover grease and stuff like that. Just get it all off as much as you can using your brake clean. So now once you have everything in the back tightened down, you should be good to go. Nothing should be moving or rattling. Don't forget to take off your S-hook before you put your wheel back on and get back on the road. Okay, so for your torque specs for your bolts, the ones that are attached to the slide pin are gonna be 25 foot-pounds, and the 19mm on the back of the caliper are gonna be 85 foot-pounds. Good. You want to do it until you hear the click. Okay, those two are good. Now, you're going to need a bigger torque wrench for the ones that are on the back. Okay, now for the top one, you're gonna want a swivel extension like this, because it's in a really hard to reach spot. I'm gonna go until you hear the click.